that it's the four immeasurables, of which are positive states of mind, which we are trying to develop, and which we're trying to develop in a sense that they become our natural way of being. That when we're at rest, when we're not thinking of anything or doing anything in particular, we are abiding in a state of equanimity, a state of loving kindness, the compassion is there, and joy, a joyful state of mind. So that's what we're aiming for. So like me, we're probably not there. Sometimes we may get some way, part of the way there, but practice and understanding is very helpful. So that's what we're doing. And as I said last time, there are sort of variations in the understanding, the formulation and the practice of these four attitudes, or these four states of mind. That initially, when I first kind of came across them, I found a bit confusing. But there, you know, I sort of looking further, it seems to me there are two main traditions. There's a sort of a prayer of aspiration, which we'll look at in a minute, which is in the Tibetan Lamrim tradition, where actually the trainings, the meditations after the prayer, nothing much happens within that particular tradition. But within the trainings of developing bodhicitta, the 7-point cause and effect training, then we look at equanimity, love and compassion, specifically within those. Joy isn't specifically mentioned, sadly, I think. But anyway, it turns up in other teachings within that tradition. And then there's the tradition that I met down in Gaia House, which the main teachers there, I think, draw on the Burmese tradition, where the practice of these four immeasurables is their central practice, I think, alongside the Vipassana practice. So whereas in the Tibetan tradition we talk about the two wings of the bird, the wisdom and the method, or the compassion aspect, within the Gaia House tradition, not that I've trained within that tradition particularly, my understanding is that you know, they have the Vipassana practice and to develop wisdom, and the four immeasurable practice to develop these particular states of mind, which are the basis of our action. So as Alex Berzin said, I quoted him last time, so rather than seeing these different traditions as contradictory, because it is a bit confusing when you first come across them, if we're aware of these varieties, actually it can enrich our practice. And that's certainly been my experience. You know, when I get stuck with one, if I turn to another, then it really, you know, it can kind of open something up. One based more on sort of logic side of our mind, and the other, in my understanding, is much more sort of experiential basis from that, and much more gentle, I think. So that's what we're going to look at today. We looked at equanimity last time, and that was more from the Tibetan perspective. This time, we're going to look at loving kindness, or metta, as it's called in Pali. You might come across that. You're probably familiar, or sometimes just called kindness. The various ways of describing it, but we'll get into that a bit later on. Yeah, so we'll do it more or less the same. So we'll begin with a motivation and a meditation, which I'll lead. And then I'll actually, as part of the meditation, or at the end of the meditation, I'll read a translation of the sutta, the Metta Sutta, which is the basis of this particular practice. And then I will explain a bit, hopefully won't talk too much. And then we'll have a break, cup of tea and toilet break and stuff. And then we'll come back and do, I think, meditation, another meditation, and then discussion. So hopefully that will see us all through, yeah? But again, as there's so few of us, if you have any questions as we go along, you know, wave your hands a bit, and if I can answer, I will. Okay, I'll try. Okie doke. So if we could put the screen share up now.
Yeah, sure.
Please, Jill. So if you'd like to just settle your your body, pay attention to your body, and settle in a position that is supportive of meditation. Yeah. So that's basically, I'm sure you all know the score by now. So that's sort of stable and upright, and at the same time relaxed, and they will support those similar qualities in the mind of stability, alertness, and relaxation. So spend a moment or two just checking through your body. And if there's any areas of discomfort or tension, then as you breathe out, try and relax those areas. And then gently, gradually narrow your focus down until you're just focusing on one area of breathing. So maybe the nostrils, maybe the rising and falling of the abdomen. But this is the anchor of your meditation. So when your attention wanders, as it probably will, and you notice, as soon as you notice, then just gently and kindly bring it back to the sensation of breathing. And we'll settle our mind like that, just for a few moments. And then it can be helpful in a very personal, individual way to think about our motivation for being here today. So it may be that we would like to include more loving kindness, to develop that quality in ourselves for the here and now, for the benefits it can bring to our daily life right now and the lives of those we come into contact with, now that we're allowed to come into contact with them. And it may be beyond that, that it's part of some kind of spiritual journey or journey of growth that we've embarked on. That we recognize the value of these qualities for the whole of our life and lives. And that actually, by developing ourselves and these qualities to the utmost, that actually we can be truly of benefit to all beings everywhere. So whichever you feel comfortable with, or whichever, if there's another motivation for being here, then just remind yourself of that, because that can inspire our practice. Aligning ourselves with our best intentions. And then if you identify as a Buddhist, you might want to join in with a formal sort of declaration of that intention and read the refuge and bodhicitta prayer along with me 3 times. If not, just stay with your own motivation. So I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. And then I'll read the prayer of the 4 Immeasurables, the longer version we've got this time. Again, join in if you wish. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were to abide in equanimity, free from hatred and attachment, not holding some close and others distant. May they abide in equanimity. I myself will cause them to abide in equanimity. Please, Gurus and Buddhas, bless me to be able to do this. And now the second verse, I'll read it and then I'll pause and make some suggestions for meditation. We'll take this one a bit slower as this relates to today. So, how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings had happiness and the causes of happiness. So maybe just think, actually how wonderful it would be if everyone had a decent home, easy access to delicious and nutritious food, to safety, living in safety, with good health, mental and physical, in a clean and pure environment, engaging in activities that brought them fulfillment. How wonderful that would be. And you can, during the course of these meditations and prayers, bring it home to make it more individual and personal. So how wonderful it would be, thinking of people that you know and care about or yourself. How wonderful it would be if Chelsea won the FA Cup, if somebody got the relaxing and holiday that they so desperately need, if they were able to heal old hurts. So again, think of those you love, you care about. What would bring them happiness? How wonderful it would be if they had that. And then there are the causes of happiness. What do we know about the causes of happiness? Actually, it's developing all these positive states of mind. These minds that are open and inclusive and lead then to positive actions of speech and body, which bring about positive karma. In other words, happiness. How wonderful if everybody were busy creating the causes only of happiness, and busy uprooting the causes of unhappiness, the negative states of mind. So may they have happiness and its causes, the next line. This aspiration, I think, rises naturally after we've done the previous contemplation. How wonderful it would be. I really wish that this could be the case. If you get any sense of that, then just focus on that for a while. If not, just maybe say the words to yourself. May they have happiness and its causes. And then again, it kind of naturally leads on. The next line, I myself will cause them to have these. In fact, at the moment, it's difficult, I can't. But to the best of my ability, I can do that. So in the short term, in the immediate term, recognizing that no act of kindness, however small, is ever wasted. So take any opportunity that presents itself that we're capable of bringing happiness to others. And meanwhile, committing ourselves to this, the development of these qualities. Holding fast to, in our imagination, to the idea that we can develop these qualities limitlessly. They're often called limitless states of mind as well. So that we will at some point, if we continue our work, be able to extend kindness to everyone. And in the meantime, recognizing that we're not there yet, we go to the last line. So please, gurus and Buddhas, or teachers and Buddhas, bless me to be able to do this. So we're not asking them to wave a magic wand. They can't do that. If they could, they would have done it. But we're seeking inspiration from them. So we're looking around at contemporary teachers, beings who are further than ourselves along the path. People like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, different path, but same aim, I think. How do they do it? I often find myself thinking, what would the Dalai Lama do in this situation? Or how does he deal with this kind of thing? And then there are all the teachers, the inspiration of the great teachers from the past, teachers that we've known in our own lives that have made an impression on us. By seeing what is possible in other people, it gives us great confidence that we can change. So in that sense, we're asking for their blessings, their inspiration to keep us going. So you might want to think of some inspirations in your own life. And again, not necessarily religious teachers, people that you know who embody kindness. So then we'll continue with the next two verses. So this is compassion, the next one. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were free from suffering and its causes. May they be free from suffering and its cause. I myself will cause them to be free from suffering and its cause. Please, Gurus and Buddhas, bless me to be able to do this. So we'll investigate that next time. Meanwhile, how wonderful this is immeasurable joy. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were never separated from the happiness of higher rebirth and liberation. May they never be separated from these. I myself will cause them never to be separated from these. Please, Gurus and Buddhas, bless me to be able to do this. Okay, thanks, Jill. So we don't need that anymore. But I'll read, if you want to stay as meditation, then I'll read the Metta Sutta. This is the words of the Buddha, translated, I think, by John Peacock. And it's from Christina Feldman's book, Boundless Heart, which is what I'm basing most of today on. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. Really recommend it. So, the Metta Sutta. To reach the state of peace, one skilled in the good should be capable and upright, easy to speak to and straightforward, of gentle nature and not proud, contented and easily supported, living lightly and having few duties, wise and with senses calmed, not arrogant and without greed for supporters, and should not do the least thing that the wise would reproach them for. One should reflect in this way. May all beings be happy and secure. May all beings be happy-minded. Whatever living beings there may be, whether weak or strong, tall, large, medium, or short, small or big, seen or unseen, near or distant, born or to be reborn, or to be born, may they, without exception, all be happy-minded. Let no one despise another, or deceive anyone anywhere. Let no one, through anger or hatred, wish for another's suffering. As a mother would risk her own life to protect her child, her only child, so for all beings, one should guard one's boundless heart. With boundless friendliness for the whole world, should one cultivate a boundless heart, in all directions, without obstruction, without hate, and without ill will, standing or walking, sitting or lying down. Whenever one is awake, may one stay with this recollection. This is called the best and most sublime way of dwelling in this world. One who is virtuous, endowed with insight, not clinging to wrong view, and having overcome all passion for sensual pleasure, will not come to lie in the womb again. Okay, so you might want to relax the meditation. Hello, Maria. Glad you made it. Okay, so let's have a little think about that. In fact, yeah, I mean, it's quite clear, isn't there? There's quite clear if we go back over that and take time and read through it. There are quite clear instructions on how we develop this, and also the results that this, according to this sutta, that if we develop this quality in our mind, then we can reach liberation, according to this. But it's based on those first lines, capable and upright, gentle nature, not proud, and so forth. It's based on ethics, isn't it? An ethical lifestyle, which is the basis of all Buddhist teachings, I think. And then we work to develop this mind. May all beings be happy and secure, etc., and so forth. And the key here is all beings, not just some. The ones I like, the ones who look like me, the ones who are nice to me, but all beings in all situations. And let no one wish for another's suffering. Let no one succumb to anger and hatred. And it says, with boundless friendliness for the whole world, should one cultivate a boundless heart, whether standing or walking, sitting or lying down. So all the time we're awake, in fact. We must maybe stay with this recollection. So, and in fact, you can do that walking around, can't you? Do it walking down the street, offering, these phrases of loving kindness to people, or just a wish, may you be happy. I used to do it on the tube when I lived in London going to work. I'd try and get everybody in the carriage, just look at them for a moment. Don't make eye contact because that's weird. That would freak them out. But just, in my head, just think, yeah, may you be happy. Or, I hope you have a nice day. It's just the loveliest thing to do, actually, or walking down the street or on the bus, why not? Why not? And then it says, if we manage to really to nail this, to do this, if we make this our state of mind, then we won't lie in the womb again. We will become liberated. So no problem. Problem solved. So how do we go about doing that? So of the 4 immeasurables, I think this metta, the loving kindness, is the one that we're most familiar with. You've probably come across before, and that the practice is most familiar. And it also establishes a pattern. So there, when they were talking about all sentient beings, it was, whether you're tall or short, long or, near or far or whatever, basically using any kind of different categories, and often opposites, so that nobody's excluded, so tall or not tall. So that's everybody, basically. But it kind of, helps you kind of get an image. So taking different categories of people and really trying within the practice to genuinely extend loving kindness to them, like the practice on the underground train. And I think she does say in the book there's a particular approach that was developed by a Buddhist scholar in, I don't know, sort of later along the way, that again you're probably familiar with, where you start, it takes in sort of concentric circles. So you maybe start with yourself, which is supposed to be easy, but we don't necessarily find it easy. But you start with somebody easy, and then you extend it to people that you care about, people who are close to you, or people that you admire first, a teacher or something like that, and then people that you're close to, because that's often maybe a slightly more sticky relationship there. And then you extend it to and you think of real people, you imagine real people, and then you extend it to people that you don't know so well, strangers on a bus or on a train or something like that, people you encounter along the way. And then you extend it to people that you really don't like. And again, there are gradations of dislike. Probably not a good idea to start with the most difficult, but there are people that you find difficult, and then you extend to everybody. So it's not just a sort of a pie in the sky, oh yeah, may everybody be happy. It's a training step by step to actually change our mind. We can all, sit here and say, well, I love the world. It's people I have difficulty with, so it's a training to extend, to challenge, and it's challenging, and otherwise it's not a training. And we will meet barriers along the way. There will be people we quite sincerely don't want to wish well, and there will be people we quite sincerely wish harm, I'm sure, at various times, if not all the time. And so with this practice, particularly when it's combined with the Vipassana practice, the observation of the mindfulness of looking at what comes up, what's actually happening in our mind at the moment, and reflecting back on the various stages we went through in the equanimity practice, then we can learn and we can actually change our minds. So we when we meet a barrier, when there's somebody we don't want to, then we sit quietly and observe. Well, I wonder why this person is so difficult. What is it? And it may be they've done me some very real harm in the past. And it's not to say that that's okay, but it's the training is we'll go into that, but the training is to try and stretch ourselves to include that person, because developing an immeasurable attitude or boundless attitude or limitless attitude, the various words are used, it excludes no one in this training. So basically, when when there are people, let's say there are people that we find difficult, just people we don't know, but just naturally you don't feel inclined to reach out towards them. It's what the teachings tell us. It's our, I think, a Sanskrit term or the Pali term is Vedana. It's feelings. Naturally, when we come across any person or situation, naturally there is a very subtle, a very immediate and very subtle feeling of like, being drawn towards, dislike, aversion, or indifference. Not no strong feeling one way or the other. And that's natural, and that's part of being alive, and that's what keeps us alive. Often keeps us away from danger and how we go forward. And actually, it's what drives our spiritual path. Actually, is our wish to be happy and to go towards the things that cause us happiness, bring happiness. The problem for us is not that these feelings arise, but is that probably we don't notice them to start with until they're sort of fairly full blown, but we believe them to be true. We believe that they are how things are, that this person that I feel drawn towards is naturally a nice person. This person that I feel aversion to is naturally a horrible person. Those feelings we have, I think it's important, they're real feelings. Those feelings arise in us, and to deny them it's a ridiculous thing to do, because we're trying to understand reality, we're trying to get closer to reality, and denying anything doesn't help. So those feelings are real, they arise in us, but what the Buddhist teaching says that they're not necessarily valid. So they're not based on a correct understanding of how things are. What actually happens is that we have this feeling, say, of aversion to start with, and it's so subtle and it's so quick, it's so instantaneous. The chances are, unless we're really practiced in meditation, we're completely unaware of it. But what happens is that if we continue in that situation with that person, if we're stuck in a lift with them or something, then we will start to notice all sorts of things about them. And what we notice is defined by our attitude. Is coloured, is flavoured by those initial feelings, and so we start to build up all sorts of stories about them. And as I say, and we actually believe that person is inherently, in and of themselves, an unpleasant person, and we are quite right and justified in feeling aversion to them, of whatever strength that is. It's we talked about it last time. It's a kind of a stereotype. We create this 2D image, this two-dimensional image of just this person and this particular aspect that's happened to get up our nose, and that's all that there is to this person. There is no richness, there is no subtlety of their personality. They are always like this, and this is totally who they are. And say last time round, we tackled this head on when we looked at the equanimity meditations and things. We identified how it's these feelings are based on me, basically. This feeling of how they make me feel. what these feelings, how I feel about this person. And even the sense of me, we kind of looked at, and if we're familiar with Buddhist ideas, I'm sure we all are. We know that this feeling of me is shaky, to say the least. It's also not founded in reality. But on the basis of this feeling of me, and how my feelings, and how this person out there makes me feel, we divide them up into friend, enemy, and stranger. And that can lead to unskillful behaviors of our body and our speech. And that leads to suffering, immediate suffering if we act upon it in that time, but also suffering, longer term suffering, in terms of the karma that we create, the negative seeds that we place on our own mind, which not only keep the delusions going in our mind. It's painful at the time, but say we're creating negative habits which will continue. So we tried to counteract that last time with meditation on seeing the bigger picture. For example, recognizing this person, the common humanity of this person, what it is that we share with this person. We all have good days and bad days. We all do things well and difficult. We all screw up from time to time. We none of us look, perfect. Well, maybe you do, I don't know. But but that's just how it is. It's all part of life's rich pattern. So here, when we're looking at loving kindness, in particular from this book, Boundless Heart, it's it feels a gentler approach and more experiential. So it kind of comes at us. It's more feeling rather than logic thing. And actually, I can't recommend this book highly enough. I know you've recommended it to me for years, Sandra, and I'm sorry it took me so long to get hold of it. It's based on Christina Feldman is one of the founding teachers of Gaia House, and clearly, when you read the book, if you may have read it already, but it's based on not only her experience as a practitioner, but also her experience, I think, as a teacher. And so, you can feel within there that she has, she's taught a lot of people, and they've come to her and they said, what about this? What about that? What about the other? So the number of times I was kind of, reading that, and she says, well, this might come up for you, and it feels like she's nailed me. Oh yeah, exactly. You're right. It did. That did happen. So very practical, very immediately practical book. Anyway, as I said, it goes through those various rings and categories, and there's a teaching to go with each one, which sort of covers similar ground to what we did last time with the equanimity. So this time I'll just give an introduction to loving kindness, and then I'll look at one section in one ring, the first ring, in more depth, just to sort of show that richness, if that's okay. Yeah. Blimey, better get a move on as well. Okay. So metta, or loving kindness, literally means, apparently, if you go back to the meanings of words, it means fat with kindness, which I think is lovely. And it has that notion in it of expanding. We know that from lockdown. That expanding, of spreading out loving kindness. Can also be called universal friendliness. So in terms of definitions, it's more than just love. Love is a complicated word in English anyway, because it's so overused and so used in so many different contexts. What it is, the clear definition, is that it wishes all beings everywhere, to experience only happiness, and the highest happiness possible, regardless of our relationship to them. It's that boundless quality. Both in terms of inclusivity, but also the happiness that we're wishing them is the greatest happiness that is possible. So what does it look like? So a verse that I really love is, I think, demonstrates this. What does it look like in action when we're developing loving kindness, or when we're coming from a place of loving kindness? And in you may be familiar with the Tibetan tradition, the 8 verses of training the mind as part of the Bodhisattva's practice. And there's that difficult second verse, which I've always struggled with, which talks about seeing yourself as the lowest of all. But actually, the Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, in the Book of Joy, has given a more contemporary rendition of that, and I think it's really lovely. So it says, "Whenever I see someone, may I never feel superior." So that's the first half. So we're seeing people as an equal. We're meeting everybody as an equal. And from the depth of my heart, may I be able to really appreciate the person in front of me. That notion of trying to really, whoever comes into our sphere of existence or, awareness, may we make the effort to really appreciate that person. And that may mean, it will mean almost certainly, stepping beyond our initial reactions, recognizing our initial reactions as purely that, that's a fact of life. And then, but being prepared to step beyond, to find out, to really try and find out more, to see the good in this other person. And, equally it works with people who we overestimate, their ability to make us happy, that we kind of cling to and grasp onto as well. And, those people that we just don't really pay attention to. May we smile at the person who serves us in the counter and say, in the shop, and say thank you, and ask if they've had a good day. If we can, it's small things like that. So another word that's often used is befriending people. And there are no strings attached. It's not befriending to feel good, although often we will feel good, but it's not for ourselves. It's just a way of being. It's, we're not expecting anything back. We're just befriending people. So what we're doing is we're developing a way of being, and it's not a gooey, fuzzy feeling, kind of, what she called Doris Day kind of, sort of feeling. It's actually, again, what Christine uses the word, it's a committed intention, which we develop through practice. It's an intention to do that. And it's an approach to life, actually. This is another thing that I think is really good from this book, this approach where it develops, it enriches the practice that I knew. It's an approach to the whole of life, not just people. So she says, we learn to befriend ourselves, all the people who come into our lives, the difficult and the lovely. And then more than that, we learn to befriend all events and circumstances, the challenging and the lovely. So we bring that befriending and that recognition, acceptance that these feelings have arisen, aversion, attachment, whatever. But we try to go beyond that in situations that we're in, not just in relation to people. Is that understandable? Yeah. So why do we do that? Why would we bother? So initially, and again she says, I'll quote from her, we recognize the toxic power of ill will. Hatred, aversion, and fear fracture our communities, our societies, and our world. Historically and today, ill will creates wars and conflict, oppression, violence, and prejudice. Can we think of any exceptions to that? Might be worth doing. See if you really can think in a quiet moment of any exception that doesn't come originally from ill will. On a personal level, we may each know the pain of being on the receiving end of ill will from others. We know that their judgments, blame, harshness, rejection, condemnation, and suspicion can leave deep scars in our lives, in our minds. It's horrible. It's horrible. We also know the painful feeling of being hijacked by such feelings ourselves towards others. It's not a good space to be, is it, when we're condemning or judging or criticizing or hating or blaming other people? It's not a good state of mind to be in. So why would we choose to be in that state if we have a choice. And we also know, we may well be familiar with this, some more than others, sometimes more than others, that when we direct those feelings of ill will towards ourselves, condemnation, judgment, it's painful. It's not conducive to happiness. And don't we all want to be happy? So Christina includes a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, from the Vietnamese Zen Buddhist teacher. And I think it sums it up, the reason why. He says, anger and hatred are the materials from which hell is made. It seems obvious. So how does it work? Okay. So let's go into the psychology of it. So ill will, anger, aversion, all the rest of it, is rooted in fear of harm or fear of loss. And again, I'll quote from Christina. When our hearts are gripped by fear, we create a sense of other, we've said, that we abandon, flee from, or attack, flight or fight. So the other may simply be the person who stands in front of us in the queue, gets in our way, can't find their change. And immediately, it's annoying. And our ill will, we condemn that person, we judge them in our heads, if not anywhere else. Or the other may be whole groups of people we condemn, mistrust, or judge. The many forms of prejudice that scar our world cannot survive without this aversive mechanism that creates the other, in turn, fueling mistrust, separation, and fear. Look at the news. Look what's happening in Northern Ireland at the moment again, all over the world, all over the place. And again, it's that thing of being based on two-dimensional stereotypes and it's a creation of our mind. So recognizing that our perceptions and feelings are not wholly to be trusted, in the work on equanimity and any understanding of emptiness, that allows us to detach and to observe what's going on in wisdom. So we can stop reacting, and then we can begin to respond with mindful awareness. So the reaction arises at whatever stage. The sooner we can recognize the reaction, the easier it is to manage. And then we can take a step back. We can, in the words of Shantideva, be like wood. Just stop for a moment, count to 10, take a deep breath, turn the other way for a while and just gather ourselves. And then we can respond with more skill, rather than just react, living backwards, being, at the mercy really of our reactions, not being human at all, basically. So what do we observe when we become aware of aversion arising within us? Ill will. So again, I'll quote, aversion propels us into agitated behavior as we try to fix or rid ourselves of the people, events, and conditions that are the source of our unhappiness. So again, I think we can kind of recognize that. If somebody doesn't, somebody annoys us, then we try to get ourselves away from there, or to put them right, tell them how they're wrong. Or if we're in a difficult situation, immediately we can go into, if it's aversive, we can immediately go into, what do I need to do to make this right, to make this the way I want it to be? It's not saying that we can't fix things, we can't, improve things, but it becomes, she says, a habit pattern that becomes so naturalized that we can cease to notice its effect on our hearts and lives. So we're not, if we just react in that way, we're maybe not, we're maybe not responding in the most helpful way. We can look back on a day and see how much time we may have spent complaining and focusing on the imperfections of the day. Things weren't right, that's not fair, this didn't happen, that should have happened. And noticing isn't a reason to feel bad, but it's the first step in making a change, that recognizing that we have a choice. We do have a choice. It just takes training, practice. What else do we observe in the face of aversion? Aversion, she says, leeches joy and happiness from our hearts and life, bringing only bleakness and alienation. I think that's true. In the Tibetan teachings say we can't even taste delicious food, or anything that we do, if we're overtaken by anger or aversion, it's just gone. The joy is not there. Check for yourselves. It can trigger obsessive thinking and set in motion downward spirals of anxiety and depression. It's a generator of a narrative. We talk ourselves, they shouldn't have done this, they always do this, and remember the time they did that or the other, or this situation always happens to me. How can I get about it? It shouldn't happen to me. I don't deserve this, or maybe I do deserve this. I'm such a bad person. Any kind of narratives can be developed if we're not careful. We can if we kind of just follow along with aversion like this. And the intensity of the aversion is matched by the intensity of the narrative. Something mildly irritates us, we might chunter on for a bit, but then we let it go. But if something really gets to us, we can keep that going for decades, actually, decades. So also the strength of I, that feeling of I, me, and mine, is determined by the aversion and the solidity that we give to the other, the strength of that. So basically, the more we blame the person out there, or the more we feel angry at the person out there, the stronger this sense of I, of me. So again, that leads to distance and separation. There's me over here, there's them over there. And we can see that in kind of political discourse, can't we? That when it gets to that sort of fist waving and that, we get into, people just get more and more entrenched in their positions and get further and further apart. And that happens on a personal level too. And it's that distance and separation, compared to, when we're feeling relaxed and happy, there's that sense, the boundaries between self and other kind of, almost melt away. So, it's a source of pain to ourselves. I mean, in the Tibetan tradition, they talk about, anger, giving into anger is like picking up a hot coal and throwing it at the person you're angry at. You may or may not hurt the person that you're throwing it at, but you sure as hell will burn your hand, you'll hurt yourself. It will bring suffering to yourself. There's no doubt about it. In the immediate term, being in the grip of anger, and in the longer term in terms of creation of negative karma and things. Okay, moving forward. No. So we can also have, and she says this is where it gets quite interesting. At times, the others that are created and solidified through aversion are aspects of our own being that we disdain, judge, or fear. Parts of our body, an illness, a chronic pain that we fear and turn away from, or aspects of our personality or history. We can have aversion even for aversion, telling ourselves that a better or more spiritual person wouldn't experience such ill will. So that leads to more self-judgment and self-hatred even sometimes. So the underlying narrative of all this is non-acceptance, the need for me and the world to be different if I am to be happy. So can we befriend aversion? We'll go for 5 more minutes before the break. Is that okay? The Buddha said in the Dhammapada, hatred does not cease by hatred. By kindness alone, hatred is healed. This is an eternal law. So this is what we do about it. This is how metta helps. So there is this dynamic. So aversion is the primary obstacle to kindness, and yet kindness is the most direct way to dissolve aversion. And actually, there's a really good example of this. Again, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I think it was in London a few years ago, and he was on at the O2 Arena. You were there, weren't you, Jill, then? And I think it was there that at that time there was sort of infighting among Tibetan Buddhist groups, and aided and abetted by the Chinese. So there were people. There were people who were protesting against His Holiness and waving banners saying that His Holiness, the Dalai Lama is a liar. And within I think it was at that time, but within the arena, when the Israelis was there ready to teach, there was one of these protesters had gotten in and stood up and started really shouting out at His Holiness and abusing him. And His Holiness stopped him quite firmly. He didn't just kind of lay back and take it, so that's okay. Quite firmly, he said, "No, stop. People you've come here to hear me, basically." But said, "I will explain my position on the thing that they were arguing about." And he did, quite firmly. He explained his position there and then. And the guy, or the person, it was a bloke, stopped or left. I don't know. I didn't see, but that was over. But I think it was the same visit. But later on, there was a photograph that a newspaper reporter had caught, and it was one of these protesters who was still holding their banner saying the Dalai Lama is a liar. And His Holiness was kind of greeting him like this, and this person instinctively just kind of bowed down in respect back. So it was a real for me, a real lesson again in the power of loving kindness to overcome hatred. I don't know, the person probably didn't change his mind forever, but also that thing of, but also, sticking up for himself in a way, saying these are the facts, not just, walk all over me and say, do what you think, it doesn't matter. But, laying out the facts, setting boundaries, but at the same time, respecting and feeling love and affection for this other person. Incredible. Okay, so metta, she says, is the path of cultivation. We're learning to swim against the tide of the habitual and impulsive patterns that cause us suffering and struggle. We clearly recognize the harmful effects of ill will and commit to walking a different pathway. I think that's kind of the crux of it, really, that we determine to do that. And we sow the seed of intention in every moment of ill will. So it's right there and then. As soon as we remember, as soon as we recognize this ill will arising within us, we sow the seed of intention, the intention to befriend and to begin to see that our capacity to change our mind of the moment through metta is to change the shape of our world at the moment. So we have that commitment to change and to work with it. And it's not, we do work on the cushion, but also in those particular moments when we're overcome. And the Buddha said, what we frequently think about and dwell upon becomes the shape of our mind. And the shape of our mind shapes our world and our experience. That's that incredible, incredibly powerful power of the mind. So with mindfulness, we acknowledge the experience. With metta, we commit to stand beside it, not to reject it, but to learn and transform, not to feel ashamed or embarrassed or whatever, whether those feelings may arise. But then we've made that intention. I'm going to use this moment of ill will, of difficulty, of whatever, and see what I can learn. We don't have to love the difficult, but we can care about it and befriend about it. And we begin by accepting what is. This is the case. It's, I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling really fed up with this person. That's a fact. Okay, what can I do about it? What can I learn? And what should I try not to do? So we turn towards it, and then with curiosity and openness, what can I learn? What is this telling me about myself? Which particular button is this person pressing? Or is this situation pressing in myself that I can work with, that I need to work with? So she says, moments of unhesitating kindness leave no residue of shame or judgment in the mind. There is a quality of joy, a sense of relatedness, and a decreasing volume of both the sense of I and the sense of other. Kindness creates no enemies. It doesn't ask us to love everyone, but to learn to see through the eyes of respect and tolerance. Metta doesn't require a narrative for its sustenance, but is born of a heart rooted in courage and understanding. Metta, she said, is a practice of happiness and peace. And just one last little bit, what it's not. So it's not primarily concerned with how we feel, but with the attitudinal commitment and intention we bring to all moments of experience. So again, it's not fuzzy-wuzzy feelings, lovey-dovey feelings, it's this commitment. This feeling has arisen, I'm going to try and uproot this from my mind. I'm trying to replace it with loving kindness. So to forsake the patterns of abandonment and aversion that provokes, to learn that we can stand next to all events and people and befriend them. And this is again where I think her experience as a teacher shows as well. It says it goes against one of the prevailing ideologies of our time, which is the myth of authenticity, she says. In other words, how we feel about something is the ultimate authority that guides how we speak, act, and relate. That's, I think, being true to yourself, people say. I've got to be true to myself. It's if I feel this way, then I must express it. That's, don't deny it for sure. That doesn't help either. But she says if we examine, if we act out of being true to ourselves in this way, what we are in fact being true to are emotional habits that don't serve us well. It's habitual, these feelings that arise. They are habits that have grown up through practice, and they can be changed into other habits that serve us better. People who equate emotional reactivity with freedom, she says, there are things, I feel this way, so therefore I have to say it. So of course I can say, use racist or abusive language because it's how I feel. I've got to be true to myself. No, it's a habit, purely and simply. Be true instead to our best intentions and aspirations is what they're suggesting. So again, not suggesting suppressing or denying emotions or feelings, but gently to examine and question. Does this lead to genuine happiness for myself and others? Is it based on relatedness with others or alienation from them? So again, one last quote from her. So metta is, oh, I said that already. I'll say it again. Metta is not concerned so much with how we feel, but how we relate to all feelings, people, events, and experiences. Yeah, so it's how we relate to those feelings. Kindness is only meaningful if it is embodied, the ground of our speech, acts, and choices. So kindness becomes who we are, is what she's saying, I think. Okay, so should we have a 15-minute break? And is that okay? Yeah, we can have a cup of tea, and if people want to chat in between times, we can leave it open, yeah? So we come back, it's 8 minutes past now, according to my computer. Let's say 10 past. Let's come back at 25 past, yeah? Oh, yeah, 25 past.
Super.
Good.
Thank you, Lynne.
Okay, see you later.
Thank you.
Let's go into the practice now. And again, I'm going to read the instructions from Christina's book, a bit of background information about it, and then we'll do the meditation practice, the first sort of session of it, or the first ring, so to speak. And what you might want to be thinking about this, we are bringing to mind a person, she says, or a relationship where there is an ease of befriending. So hang on a minute. We remember a recent encounter with a person or an event that's had an unmistakable taste of metta, unhesitating kindness. Okay, so you can be thinking about that just while I do the introduction. So just doesn't have to be anything special. Okay, so if you'd like to, you might want to just sit in a posture of meditation while I just read the instructions. It's very nicely written. So the conscious cultivation of metta as a meditative pathway employs the use of a few simple phrases that give shape and language to the intention of metta. There's nothing sacred about the phrases I will suggest. It's important to find words that are meaningful to us that we can use with ease. The words are secondary. They are the ways that we can begin to learn to sustain the intentions of kindness and befriending. So, and she says, traditionally, the way we have inherited the metta practice is to invite into the field of our attention the various domains of human relationships. We turn our attention to ourselves, to someone we regard as a benefactor, to a good friend, to someone we are more indifferent towards, to a difficult person, and finally expanding to all beings, known and unknown. So that's the entire practice, but we're just going to do one phase of it now. The style of practicing metta, she says, is a skillful means. The method is the way that we begin to make our home with the intention to befriend and to cultivate an attitude of kindness. As an insight practice, we would use the phrases slowly, allowing space between the silent articulating of each phrase, as if listening to the silence between the calls of an owl in the night. That's so beautiful, isn't it? With each phrase, we are planting the seeds of intention in the ground of mindful stillness, and then listening inwardly to whatever response arises. There's no right response. We're not trying to contrive a particular feeling or state of experience. That's important. There may be a whole range of different responses: impatience, boredom, agitation, or aversion. There might be responses of warmth, of tenderness and brightness. All are welcome and included in the intentions of befriending that are planted. Rather than expecting we should feel some loving glow, we remember that the practice is concerned with learning to sustain the intention of befriending and allowing it to plant its roots in our heart. So that's even the difficult things, the unexpected, the unwanted things. We're learning to befriend those within the practice. There is a psychological and emotional process involved in the cultivation of metta. We begin by remembering, bringing to mind a person and relationship where there is an ease of befriending available to us. An aspect of the Pali word sati, usually translated as mindfulness, is this quality of remembering or recollecting. In the cultivation of metta, we are remembering our capacity for boundless kindness. Not only are we establishing a present moment recollection, but we are remembering our deepest values and intentions and our capacity to embody those intentions. So we remember a recent encounter with a person or an event that has an unmistakable taste of metta, unhesitating kindness. There is a trackable psychological process involved in the cultivation of metta as we learn to incline the heart toward befriending. The recollection of this past event is brought into the present. We attend to it with mindfulness, and it becomes a present moment recollection. Through sustaining our attention within the felt sense of befriending, we learn to deepen and sustain the capacity of our hearts to abide in kindness. So as we bring up this feeling, this memory, we're practicing, we're doing it again, we're doing more. As we learn to incline our hearts towards befriending rather than towards aversion and abandonment, on the subtlest level, new neural pathways are being laid. On a psychological and emotional level, metta, as a way of being present, becomes increasingly naturalized. So that's the science behind it. So let's start the practice. So she says, begin by finding a place where you can sit in a comfortable position and establish a posture of calm alertness. Allow yourself to settle into the posture, feeling all the places where your body contacts the cushion, chair, and ground, bringing awareness to the sensations that are present. Sense the sounds and the stillness around you. Allow the thoughts of past and future simply to sit in the background of your attention and begin to establish a present moment recollection, coming back to the present moment. Include in that mindfulness an awareness of your present moment mood, the climate of your mind and heart. A simple noticing without judgment or ideas about the mood we think should be present. So now, as much as you are able to, invite into the field of your awareness a recent encounter with a person or event where there was an unhesitating sense of friendliness, warmth, appreciation, or generosity. Remembering an encounter that has gladdened your mind and brought a smile to your heart. It doesn't need to be particularly dramatic or special memory. The smile of a child, an unexpected gesture of kindness from a stranger, a meeting with someone you care about. Allow that person to sit in the center of your attention and listen inwardly to whatever response arises in the present with that remembering. You're simply sensing the felt sense of gladness associated with the image. As you hold that person in your attention with kindness, begin to offer your well-wishing for his or her well-being. And these are the suggested phrases, but use your own if they're better. May you be safe and well. May you be peaceful. May you live with ease and with kindness. Allow the phrases simply to rest in your awareness. They're not invocations or commands, but simple offerings of generosity and kindness. You can simplify if you want and use only one simple phrase or even just one word. May you be safe and well. May you be peaceful. May you live with ease and kindness. Let there be space between the phrases. And in those spaces, listen inwardly to whatever response arises as the phrases are silently articulated. When your attention drifts away or becomes hijacked by streams of thought, just gently return your attention to the intentions of befriending and mindfulness by gently returning to the phrases. May you be safe and well. May you be peaceful. May you live with ease and kindness. May you be safe and well. May you be peaceful. May you live with ease and kindness. And then to finish the practice, we might want to include ourselves and everyone. So may we all be safe and well. Remembering back to our motivation at the beginning. May we all be peaceful. May we all live with ease and kindness. And when you're ready, relax the meditation. Okay, and I'll just finish off reading a few more bits of hers, sort of about the practice, because clearly she's very experienced in doing this as a practice. Then we can go to discuss. So she says, in the cultivation of metta, we begin with the domains where there is the greatest accessibility to our own potential for kindness and friendliness. We start with what's easy. We develop the felt sense of what it means to establish ourselves within those intentions before bringing those intentions to more emotionally complex areas of our experience. So we're building habits, new habits, really. We are learning to be intimate with the landscape of unhesitating friendliness. And she says, this is not a practice that's confined to the meditation cushion with our eyes closed. This is a practice for our lives. Every moment is an opportunity to cultivate kindness. On hold on the telephone, waiting for a bus, standing in line in the supermarket may be moments we dismiss with frustration or impatience, but they are fertile moments for consciously cultivating our capacity for befriending the present just as it is. And as we go out into our lives and the myriad of encounters each day brings, we learn to keep the intention of befriending close to our hearts. It can be deeply helpful to begin to notice the small and large moments in our day when we offer and receive unhesitating kindness from those we know and those we don't know. We can learn to acknowledge and honor those moments intentionally, offering a simple, silent, and appreciation and well-wishing. So I think that's important as well as taking it to daily life, is recognizing and just acknowledging, taking a moment. That was an act of kindness. How wonderful. And go back to the phrases or whatever, just rejoice in that. That's part of the joy practice as well. And it one of the things I thought might be helpful to discuss, but that quote from the Buddha about what we become habituated to. What was it? Let's get it right. What we frequently think about and dwell upon becomes the shape of our mind, and the shape of our mind shapes our world of experience. So if we think about how hard done by we are all the time and how difficult life is and how inadequate we are or whatever patterns we have, then that is a habitual way of looking at things, and that shapes the way that actually we see things. That those habits get stronger and stronger, and actually what we see, what we perceive, will tend to reinforce that. So if we actively change the way we see things, there are acts of kindness around. People are generous. How wonderful that happens. I can do good things, and I, focus on the good things that I do, rather than how I miss the mark in my ideal sort of search of perfection. If we focus on the positives, it's not sort of Doris Day kind of nonsense. It actually does. That's what we kind of, not that I've got anything against Doris Day. I think she was a wonderful woman, wonderful actress. But she, you know, it does shape actually our perceptions, and our whole world begins to change. We see things differently. Yeah, there was something else, but I've forgotten what it was. Never mind. Oh yeah, the other thing I'll say is, in doing this practice, if you kind of, you know, want to take it forward, it can be tempting to kind of race through the different levels, the different domains. It was suggested to me when I first did a retreat on this, and I think it stood me in good stead, is really stay with the earlier ones for a long time. Stay with them until you feel ready to move on. Don't rush on. Don't, you know, there's this, we have this achievement kind of culture. Really enjoy. We're building up new habits. It takes time. So really enjoy. Get to recognize, get to know it deeply, that intention and that feeling, what it feels like to have that intention of loving kindness, and where it's easy. And then the boundaries and the obstacles that we'll meet further on are much easier to get through, to overcome, if we've done, you know, if we've stayed with the early work. Okay, that's enough of me. So discussion time now till the